The topic is Malcolm X in New York. And of course, we have to talk about his experiences with Malcolm X, Kwame Leo Lillard. And of course, Kwame, let's see if we can pick up where we left off. And more specifically, let's talk about his assassination. Why don't you start where you wish to start and talk about it from there.
Well, I think the importance to say is that after 3 years with Malcolm, listening to him, he left the country for a while. And during that period of time, obviously, he was growing. He was beginning to question some of his doctrine. So it was that in itself was a lesson, is that you always question doctrine. And what that's the second part of Malcolm's teaching to me, is that liberation is not a destination, it is a journey, and you constantly are looking and questioning your paradigms and your ideologies. Let nothing stay as it is. Question everything. So during the period when Malcolm had split with Elijah and the very simplistic concept of Islam, I was understanding the need to look at a bigger world too. So I had friends that were Iranians. I was in graduate school with Indian kids and Buddhist kids. So that was expanding my horizon in terms of ideology of spiritualism. And so when Malcolm came back to New York City in '64, my wife was pregnant with my first child, and that he was born on January 16th, Leo, number 3. And that was in a snowstorm. There was like 18 inches of snow on the ground, and we had to trudge in the subways to the hospital to see him. But Malcolm was still doing what he was doing, and he had moved from the Harlem, the Mecca, to 125th Street, to a bigger ballroom that he rented, and that was called the Audubon Ballroom. I went to one of those meetings, but I missed the meeting where he was taken from us by about 3 hours. I was going to go, but I got involved with many things in my community.
So you really could have been.
I could have been there because I had been there 2 weeks before. But that particular day, I was not there. It is fascinating to watch the New York City police, the FBI, and the CIA the day he was taken from us. It was predicted by the Malcolm X organization that there'd be a move to destroy Elijah Muhammad's mosque, right? To prove that Malcolm was killed by Muhammad, and Malcolm's men then destroyed Muhammad's mosque. Ironically, nobody in Harlem was duped by it, because the people in Harlem knew that this was a CIA plot in the first place. This is the common feeling in Harlem. And as perchance, I went to Harlem to look for what a mosque was. And on every rooftop, ringing that entire block, was New York Police Department. Every rooftop had 2 to 3 uniformed officers with rifles and weapons, right, around Muhammad's mosque, supposedly making sure that didn't happen. But of course, you know, it happened.
It did.
And so that really drove the nail in to everything Malcolm had talked about. Is that their wickedness and spirit, and people in high places who do not intend to let go of the reins of power from the founding fathers to that very day. And the racism is part of a bigger juggernaut called America. And that everything is orchestrated. This is what Malcolm taught us. Everything is orchestrated. There are no accidents. All right? And so the people in Harlem were not surprised at all when the mosque was burned up and blown up with all those policemen around there.
The mosque was actually blown up.
Yeah, to make it justify the fact that now the revenge has happened. The Elijah people killed Malcolm, and Malcolm's people blew up the mosque, Elijah's mosque, and
that was a chain that caused an effect.
Right. And so the funeral was phenomenal. I mean, I went to the funeral. I did go to that. I took slides of the funeral. It was probably 2 to 5 degrees above zero at the funeral, and people were absolutely uncomfortable. Hands almost frostbitten, feet almost frostbitten. Nobody got out of the line. It took you 3 hours to stand in line to see Malcolm's body. It took you just as long to go to actually the entourage to where he was buried. But nobody got out of line. Nobody complained. Nobody was bitter. It almost reminded me, believe it or not, of Rosa Parks' viewing this past year in D.C. They did it the same way in D.C. They made us stand outside for 2 hours to get in to see Rosa Parks' body. And they were harassing people, but nobody was upset.